Bob, I wanted to let you know that I did go over to 301 Wells Street. I did take a look.
Yeah, me too.
I'm hoping they're going to repave that parking lot because it's
I think they'll have to.
yeah.
Are you guys
Yeah.
ready to start the meeting?
I
think
was
you're free, so I
waiting
think
for
you could.
Ginny. Yeah. Okay. All right. I won't wait for Ginny then.
Just depends on how much you want to talk about things that are on the agenda.
Right. Okay. Well, I also was waiting for Ginny because she has the treasurer's report, but we'll manage. Okay, well, let me call the meeting to order. I am Lynn Kelly, Chair of the Commission on Disability Access. And could we go around and have everyone say their name and
yeah, Lynn, it works best if you call on people and then have them introduce themselves just from it's hard to know who needs to go next with everyone on the screen.
Okay. All right. Good point. Bob Williford.
Bob Williford, new kid on the block.
Laura Jordan.
Laura Jordan.
Lindsay Rowe. Who is our acting ADA coordinator for the town.
I'm actually the ADA coordinator, not just acting.
Oh, okay.
Hooray.
Yeah. That's new. Virginia DeSorga.
Hi, present.
Okay. And it looks like we have a couple of guests today. Beth Giannini, am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, you are. Yes, Beth Giannini. I'm a transportation planner with the Franklin Regional Council of Governments.
Thank you. And Linda Scarborough.
Hi, I'm Lori Scarborough. I'll work with Beth here at the,
I'm sorry.
Okay, I work with Beth here at the Franklin Regional Council of Governments.
Thank you. And Robin Fordham is our planning coordinator.
I am
okay.
I'm the grant program assistant, and I'm actually about to duck out because I'm going to take this moment to actually say goodbye. I'm leaving my position in late July, and I'm going off to grad school. And so this is my last moment here. I just wanted to say what an honor it's been to help out with this committee, and it's really opened my eyes to a lot of things, along with giving me just some really wonderful people to work with. So that's it. I'm going to study historic preservation at the University of Vermont. So
how awesome!
Yeah, congratulations.
Yay!
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good luck to you, Robin. You'll be missed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Deeply.
Thank you all. All right. Have a great meeting. I'm going to sign up. Oh, yes, Lynn?
So is this meeting being recorded?
It is being recorded, Lindsay. It is in the incredibly capable hands of Lindsay.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Tap dance and juggle and chew gum and write papers all at the same time.
All right. All right. Well, best of luck to you. Best of luck.
Take care,
Thank
everybody.
Bye now.
Okay.
Good luck.
Bye.
Okay. So next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from May 13th. I wondered if anybody had any questions or changes to make. I thought everything looked pretty clear, except on page 2, under building accessibility for the library, it says review of 5 issues. Does everybody have the 5 issues that we reviewed? Have a copy of that? And how about you, Lindsay? Do you know if that's been recorded?
We have a copy of that. And
Okay.
it'll be attached to these minutes, I think, because they
To the attachment. Okay, that's what I
It was a
thought. I just wanted
document
to
they
make sure.
used.
Okay, then if there are no other changes, I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second, disorder.
Okay,
All right, and then
we need to do a roll call to accept them. Yes? Okay. So I accept the minutes. Yes. How about Virginia
Yes.
and Bob?
Yes.
Wilford? And Laura?
Yes.
Okay. The minutes are accepted. Okay, if we could do the treasurer's report?
Which I have.
Yay.
Okay. So the first part is what we have left is unchanged in the handicap parking fund is $3,221.05. Okay, and in the other, wait a minute, is $300. That's the, wait a minute, our budget. That is 300, and that's the end of the year report. And she said no changes. That's from Angelica. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All right, so I'd like to turn to our guest today. I know that Virginia and Laura and I have been working with the Elm Terrace bus stop for, I think now it was 2 years ago we did our first assessment. So I know that there have been a number of discussions and iterations, but if you could help us right now, just share with your involvement and what's going on.
Sure. I can start and give just a little background and some information about the project and the funding that the Franklin Regional Transit Authority received to do some infrastructure improvements at the Elm, around near the Elm Street, Elm Terrace bus stop. I don't know and then if you have questions, we're happy to answer. Through the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, during COVID, there was a grant opportunity that came up. It's called the Shared Streets and Spaces Program, and they ran several grant rounds. And the program had a few different aspects to it, but one aspect to this grant opportunity, which was kind of a unique and a really kind of good opportunity for any pedestrian, bicycle, access to transit type of projects that came about that were like short-term, ready to go. It was kind of a nice funding opportunity. So I think it was the most recent, or maybe the second round of the funding. They actually opened it up to allow regional transit authorities to be able to apply for funding. So we had been helping our towns to submit applications, And we reached out to the Franklin Regional Transit Authority to let them know that they were eligible to apply through this funding source. In the course of discussing potential applications, they felt that some improvements at the Elm Street, Elm Terrace bus stop was kind of at the top of their list as far as making improvements that would be eligible through this funding source. Our office previously had also looked at the area around the Elm Terrace, Elm Street bus stop to improve the pedestrian accessibility. And I guess when I say accessibility, I mean accessibility like in the handicapped accessibility aspect, but also just sort of generally improving the sidewalks, because there was sort of a missing link of sidewalk on the east side of Elm Street between Allen Street and Elm Terrace. And in the past, we had kind of looked at that and really noted that that was like a visibly missing piece of sidewalk. So we worked with the Franklin Regional Transit Authority to put together a grant application through the Shared Streets and Spaces program. And basically, the improvements, they're looking at kind of relocating their bus stop slightly to the south on Elm Street. We included funding to construct that missing piece of sidewalk from Allen Street to Elm Terrace, to put in actual like bus stops that have landing pads and crosswalk further south from where the existing bus stop is on Elm Street. So the bus stop is closer to Elm Terrace. And then at the recommendation of the Greenfield Department of Public Works, we included a section of sidewalk to be improved on Elm Terrace also, which I believe is going to dovetail with a sidewalk improvement project that Elm Terrace is going to be completed within Elm Terrace. So the Greenfield Housing Authority has a project where the sidewalks within Elm Terrace are going to be improved. And so this project will like dovetail and meet up with that project as far as the section on Elm Terrace. So that's kind of a nutshell of what is being proposed. Substantially, the section of sidewalk on the east side of Elm Street between Allen and Elm Terrace, a section of sidewalk from Elm Street, I think it's 60 linear feet back on Elm Terrace. The two bus stops with landing pads and on Elm Street, right near Elm Terrace, and then crosswalks across Elm Street, across Elm Terrace, and then with ADA accessible ramps and tactile warning and fully ADA compliant. And then I think one of the curb ramps at Allen Street and Elm that was lacking a curb ramp is included, the west side. So that's what's planned. As of right now, they were successful in getting the funding. They are currently soliciting a designer to do survey and final design. The design that we submitted with the application was a preliminary conceptual design that Greenfield DPW had put together for us. But right now we've solicited the services of a engineer to do a final design for the project. And then I think the design will be completed after July 1st. And then the construction, once the design is completed, the construction will be completed after that, but before the end of December, because the project needs to be completed by the end of December. So if there's any, in the course of us applying for the grant, we got feedback through the MassDOT Shared Streets and Spaces evaluation team, and they provided some feedback about components of the project, like particularly the tweaking the location of the bus stop and the landing pad, based on experts that were on their review committee who knew, bus stop design and used the MBTA's bus stop design manual to provide us with feedback. So we did incorporate a lot of like accessibility, and we got that feedback through them. But that said, there's an opportunity now, as we're getting a designer, for if there's further tweaks that we need to make or adjustments we need to make to the plans. They're not final yet. So, and I don't know if Lori, my colleague, is here, if she wants to add to, we work together on this. So if you may have questions that Lori can answer better than I can.
Bob, you wanted to ask a question?
Yes, please. Beth, I think the original plan was to reuse the bus shelter that's up there in Elm Terrace. Is that still the plan, or are they going to build an entirely new bus shelter?
So as far as I know, and this is me being the kind of the messenger for FRTA, but I can certainly also take information back. I feel like there was a bus shelter that's up near Foster's that's maybe not being used. I think the decision in the end, as far as the bus shelter that's within Elm Terrace, was to leave that bus shelter there, because there was, it's being used maybe for like, for the demand response service. I know there's a lot of residents of Elm Terrace that use the demand response service, and
right.
I feel like there's people using that shelter even though the bus isn't going there. One other thing that got I met with the I'm sorry, is it the parking committee, the sidewalk and parking committee, and they gave me some comments, and there were two comments. One was they were curious about the slopes of the existing sidewalks and the meeting ADA to get from basically Elm Terrace down to the newly located bus stop. And we did go out and collect that data. And Lori can probably speak to that a little better than me. And I think all told, when the project is finished, that it will be compliant with all grade requirements for ADA. What's not meeting the ADA compliant grade will be when the project is finished. And then the second question that had come up was whether, when we were doing the conceptual design, the feedback from a while ago, facility did not want a bus shelter on the west side of Elm Street at the bus stop for whatever their reason, security reasons or whatever. And that comment came up for us to maybe revisit that with the correctional facility, which I did that. And because the bus stop is being moved to the south, away from the entrance to the correctional facility, they were actually okay with us putting a bus shelter also on the west side, which will be nice if it's raining, so someone waiting for the bus won't have to sit out in the rain, or wait on the east side and then have to cross the street when the bus arrives. So as long as we can fit it, because the landing pad will have to be made a little bigger to accommodate a bus shelter, there will be a bus shelter also on the west side, as well as the east side of the road of Elm Street. That bus shelter, I believe, is coming from the FRTA's inventory of uninstalled bus shelters that they have in boxes in their facility. So, because at the time that the correctional facility said yes, I asked Michael if it would be a problem and if we needed more funding to purchase, and he said, no, I have some available to install. So that was a long answer to your shelter question, but I hope
Thank you
that I
very much.
answered it. Yeah, and that's as much as I know. And I will pass that along to Michael also, that that question came up, just to confirm that it's not, I don't think it is the shelter from within Elm Terrace.
One of the things, Beth, is that the standards for the bus shelters say you must be able to get your wheelchair entirely inside the bus shelter. So I don't know if an older bus shelter that's available to reuse has that capability, but that's the current standard.
We will. I'll write a note, and we'll make sure that that is complied with.
Thank you.
Laura, did you want to ask any questions or give a little summary of the history of what we've been through? Or
Yes, I'd be glad to. Thank you. Well, Beth and Lori, I appreciate you coming here to explain your role in this project, and listening to what you have to say. I am now realizing that to some extent, the design of the project was really to look at sidewalks, was really to enhance sidewalks more than it was concerning the siting of the bus stop. So it seems like that was the original impetus for this project. I actually live in Elm Terrace, and I have been a bus rider, which is why I got involved in looking into this. And from the point of view of Elm Terrace riders, I can say that we have never been approached by FRTA about any of our input on the whole project. And it's been a point of frustration, because through this committee, we've reached out to them a number of times, and just have had our hands slapped back in just no response at all. So, however, now that you're pointing out that it really was a sidewalk addressing issue rather than accessibility for Elm Terrace per se issue, that now gives me a context to understand this. I understand that this is going to be a costly project, and ultimately the ridership to be served at this bus stop is not necessarily going to be much boosted at all by creating this new expensive design, because the siting of the bus stop really does not address the needs of Elm Terrace residents. But the horse has left the barn at this point, in spite of the fact that we've tried to put our 2 cents in on this. Anyone else?
well, I know that 2 years ago, Virginia and I went at the request of Laura at Elm Terrace. Really, our only request was, could we just have the FRTA resume bus service at the bus stop that is there? I mean, it's a wonderful idea to have all the new bus stops, but it's a long haul for people who are not in a wheelchair or using walkers or canes. And I think that was the point that we were trying to make right from the beginning. But, you know, essentially the feedback we kept getting was the bus route is not going to be changed. It is not going to be coming in to use that older bus stop. I mean, I think also the other thing that Virginia and I looked at was the condition of the sidewalks. So that will be a wonderful addition. I mean, that's a really important thing. And I don't want in any way to minimize that, you know, this is a wonderful project. But I guess I just want to kind of go circle around back to the original request had been if we could just have the bus stop where it is and have the bus come there. But as Laura said, we may be past that at this point. So I just wanted to give you that little history, that background. Yeah. Ginny?
I just want to echo that we started
I'm sorry.
from the beginning, and that there's 108 people who live there that are elderly and disabled. And I'm happy that the route will be more accessible. And yet, if you are walking with a cane, a walker, etc., this new plan has made the distance much longer. And as you can see from being down there, there are so many people who are walking over to Foster's. I'm just struck by how many people are walking with walkers or canes, and it is going to be accessible, which is good, and the sidewalks will be better, which is good, but it is so much further. And we've been saying that since the beginning, but I know that you or both of you came into this in a middle part, it sounds like, somewhere along the way. And I wanted to thank you for, you know, all your work on it. And I know I didn't meet you, so you mustn't have been here from the beginning. But I do want to certainly thank you for coming and thank you for your work. But I just wanted you to understand where we were. I'm the precinct counselor for Precinct 3, which is Elm Terrace, is within that, and have been on disability access for a long time. And, you know, if it were your mother or your aunt or your grandmother, you'd be wishing that the route was shorter. And but thank you for listening.
I did also just want to acknowledge about having the new bus stop on Elm Street, because you know, one of the other issues that came up right from the beginning was if you're going to have a bus stop there, it was kind of on the side of a hill and dangerous and inaccessible in the winter. So, you know, I don't in any way want to minimize that, because that piece is very important. So having a bus stop that is safe and easy to access there, it is important as well. Yeah.
I would also like to chime in that I don't have any bone to pick with the Franklin Regional Council of Governments at all. I really appreciate that you were on the ball and able to find this funding and took the initiative to reach out to FRTA. And certainly this is an improvement to our community. So you all have done everything that you should have done and went beyond. So you're making it happen, and I really want to acknowledge your hard work.
Thank you. And I'll just say I'm happy to pass this information on to Michael, but unfortunately, Lori and I aren't the ones deciding where the bus stop location is. We were just trying to make improvements that even if, you know, in the end they move the bus stop back, there'll be better sidewalks, so, and crossing. But I'm happy to, you know, give Michael this information and pass it back to the FRTA.
If he listens to you, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that the plans that you submitted are preliminary, and when will the, I'm sorry, did you say you put it out for bid for the new designer?
So we ended up realizing that we need a engineer to, because on the east side of the road, because of that slope next to the sidewalk, you really need to have an engineer do kind of cross our T's and dot our I's. So we did need to hire an engineer to look at that and do plans, and also to do a survey to kind of get the property lines perfect. So that bid has already, our office, we have a procurement department, we have a department that does procurement. And so that we did that for FRTA, and I believe that it's already done. And there was, I think we got one bid. So it's a pretty small job. And so, you know, and engineers and surveyors are all really busy right now. So, so we were fortunate because we were worried we wouldn't get any bids. The scheduling is that will happen after July 1st, because it's a funding availability that FRTA is paying for the design themselves, and their funding that they're using for the design was available after July 1st. So I feel like maybe a month will be the timing for having something. I'm just kind of guessing, estimating. Probably, I would say like 4 to 6 weeks, I think, for a design. Would that be something that the committee would like to have? I don't know if we could bring the plans back, or we could just make sure that the engineer gets the plans to Lindsay, and then she could share them with you.
Yes, that would be very important. Yeah, and we would really appreciate that. Just to be kept in that loop and to be able to see the new design. Yeah. Good. Did anybody else have a question, comment for Beth or Lori? Okay. Well, I want to thank you both for the work that you're doing. It's really, as I said, Virginia and I were there 2 years ago, just walking around. So having the new sidewalks will be amazing. Yeah, yeah. And I think addressing the slope will be very important too. Yeah. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to head out. You certainly don't have to stay for the rest of our meeting. I just wanted to let you know that. But you're certainly welcome to stay.
Thank you. And if anything else, you know, generally Lori and I do a lot of bicycle and pedestrian and transit stop, like bicycle and pedestrian assessments. So if anything comes up, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to, like, you know, look at things or take a look and then report back. And so if there's anything that comes up.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, both of you, for coming. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay. So I just want to quickly mention, since it's under this category of department heads, we talked about having Mass Match come. Is that still a possibility? And then my other
scheduled for July.
July, great. Okay. So I was wondering if we could schedule for August or maybe September the Human Rights Commission. I know that Bob had gone to one of the meetings, and that it was clear there was a little bit of overlap. So I just thought it might be nice for us to, meet with them and yeah, look at the things that overlap.
So a joint meeting between you all and the Human Rights Commission?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
If that could work for August or September or, yeah.
Would that be at our next meeting or August or September's meeting?
That would be in August
Or
or
a separate
September.
meeting? So that would be our meeting in September.
Correct. Or
Okay.
August. Yeah.
Okay.
So next month it will be mass match.
Okay.
Talking about
Thank you.
technology. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, we're not having a separate meeting. It'll just be within our meeting.
That's a great
Okay.
idea on the Human Rights Commission, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Bob brought that up, and as I said, he attended, and it's important. Okay. Building accessibility. Bob, would you like to just briefly talk about the library and the success of the 5-point plan?
Well, I would have to say that gotten
A little louder. Just
got headphones on. Who knows what the
Still can't hear you.
If you could speak up a little bit, maybe, perhaps.
Let me switch to the computer mic. So I'm back. Is that better?
That's
Way better.
much better.
Okay. Technology, it's great when it works.
Uh,
I have to say, without saying anything really bad about the whole process of designing the library, I would say that there have been points in this whole process where it seemed like there was a lot of pushback from the library community saying, we need to have this thing. And the architect would say, well, we'll look into that. And then the next meeting or the meeting after that, somebody would say, and so what's the status of having windows that open? Because they wanted to have some windows in the building that could be opened. Oh, yeah, that's too much money. So they made the decision to not give us a quote on what it would cost to have windows that open. But they were very positive at the planning board meeting to say, yeah, that makes sense to us in things like the crosswalks and curb cuts on Main Street to get into the library driveway. Because we sent them pictures that showed it's pretty much a level sidewalk now. And they said, yeah, we could probably still do that and it would be a good thing. So that's a win, I think. The handicap parking, I don't think we're going to get any more handicap parking, but they were very concerned that it seems like you'd have to go in one direction to cross the street to then come back to the entrance of the library from the handicap parking. So I think they were not specific about what they're doing, but they said they're going to make it much easier. Not sure what that means. So we'll see what the details are in the next building committee meeting. Let's see, where were some of the other things? Oh, access from other areas of the parking lot where there were no curb cuts. So you really couldn't get up on the sidewalk. They said, yeah, that's a 6-inch curb. So it might not be actually required by the ADA because it's not the specific handicap parking that we're trying to get from. But yeah, we'll do that. So those were the three major things I think that we had expressed interest in. And then a couple of the other things with the handrails in the ramp on the back. I don't think it had occurred to them that there were different standards, and I got the impression that their software was saying, "Oh, that's a walkway, so it doesn't need handrails." But the architect, Phil O'Brien, said, "Yeah, people expect that the handrails are going to continue when you turn the corner." So yeah, you'll have handrails. He assured us of that, and that grand staircase that goes from the first to the second floor and back will now have a handrail down the middle of that bottom part of the stairway, because apparently the specifications changed, the requirements changed, and I guess they hadn't noticed that. So now they're going to have a rail on the stairs. Again, things could change, I suppose. That, I saw lots of head nodding from the architect. I could be wrong, but I hope not. I think we're on the right path.
I saw the same head nodding at that planning board meeting myself. So they were indeed very open to listening what the ideas were and seeing the logic of them after they were pointed out, and not seeing any pushback whatsoever. They seemed to see the logic of it, and I was very pleased that they were going to do that.
Yeah, only thing better would have been to get some more handicap parking.
Yes,
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
I just want to say kudos for you. It sounds like both of you for going to that meeting and following up, because my experience has been that's where things can get lost in translation. We finally were sending somebody from planning board to zoning board to make sure that our message, very nicely, but that our message was conveyed. And that meant an extra meeting on your parts, who I think it sounds like both of you went. And I just want to thank you so much, because that probably made the difference in whether or not those things were getting done, was the follow through part. So thank you.
Yes, thank you indeed. It's been a long haul.
Yeah. Well, Bob has been really instrumental, especially in these final, that saying, the devil's in the details. And yeah, it really is. There was one other thing about the library. Of course, it's slipping my mind at the moment. Oh, yes. Did you, Bob, did they ever clarify why they were calling that section a walkway and not a ramp?
They didn't really say that, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean, it was a completely different slope on the walkway than on the ramp, much gentler on the walk. So I'm guessing that somebody somewhere said, gee, that's better than what the ADA requires, so it'll be fine. I'm not sure. I almost got the impression that the architect was saying it would be a ramp, but I think he was just saying that it would be like a ramp and meet all the requirements of a ramp. I don't think he was changing the angle on the back part of it. Not sure. It would take up less of that back patio area if it was as steep as a ramp. So I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, it is nice that we have that off the back of the building. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else about the library? Okay. Didn't want to move on. So the next issue of accessibility is the 301 and 307 Wells Street. Bob went down. Was it yesterday morning?
Yes.
Okay. I went down as well. So let's see. Obviously, our concern started with the parking and the type of handicap ramp, handicap parking space that would be there. And since it's only going to be one space, it's going to need to be a van space. They don't have any markings on the pavement now. For some reason I thought there had been a handicap spot there, but maybe I was looking at another building. And then Bob made the good point that if there is a handicap spot there, that there needs to be along the right of way so that you can cross in front of the car rather than go out into the parking lot. So it would need something along the building. I wasn't sure exactly which entrance is going to be the main entrance. Do you happen to know that, Lindsay? I mean, there's a wooden door and then there's the glass doors. Can't hear you.
I think the plans had shown it. Let's see if I can pull up the thing I sent you, Lynn. I think that I can probably.
I can share it, I think.
Oh, do
Hang
you
on a
have it?
second.
Okay.
I do.
Because I thought they had a sidewalk in front of the cars on there, but I don't remember.
If they do, I don't think it's a 4-foot sidewalk. Here's the handicap parking. Can people see the cursor there?
No.
I don't.
Did you hit shared screen? You have to ask me to share, I think.
Share.
I'm changing you to be presenter.
All right.
Thank you to our techni wizards.
How many gigs does it take?
Just
I
about.
Share
think I heard
content.
it wrong.
Share photos. How about now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
So there's the parking space. And this is Wells Street down here. And this very first door, which is a wooden door,
Right.
is the one that they're talking about making the entrance into this tap room.
Okay.
And they're probably going to replace the door. I don't know that for sure.
I would guess so because it's in pretty bad shape.
It looked a little narrow. I couldn't quite tell. Does it have a dimension on there? I mean, is it a?
It doesn't on the drawing, but I measured it yesterday, and the existing door frame is about 42 inches.
Oh,
It
okay.
depends on what they put up there, I suppose.
Right. Okay. I just couldn't tell by looking at it, and I didn't have a tape measure with me at the time.
Yeah, I basically made a copy of this section of the drawing and then divided this 18-foot parking space thing into about 6 pieces. So I'd have little 3-foot measures to hold up on various things, which is how I found out that this area up in here behind the bar is about 3 feet wide, because that's the emergency access to go out the delivery entry.
Okay.
So
And
Oh,
I'd like to say, I think we should request an actuator for that door.
for this door here,
Yes,
the entranceway.
yes. Eventually, the zoning down there in the GI has changed. And this has the capacity to become a restaurant. I wanted to tell Cam Ward that in case he didn't know.
Oh, my.
It just had a pouring license before. It was like a special permit when we granted that to lefties. But I actually wanted him to know that that could be a restaurant. So with that in mind, but actually, I think we should always be asking for the actuators on the door.
yeah.
So that's all.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because it was on my list. You know, that's always at the top of my wish list. you know, it doesn't, it, yeah, it's not mandated, but it certainly is a wonderful thing to have. And the design inside looked good. Initially, I wasn't sure about the counters, but the seating has tables. Yeah, okay. Because I was concerned that maybe this was just all a high, you know, bar height counters. But no, the seating looks good. So my last question is around, I'm sorry, did someone else want to say something about the seating? So my last question was about the bathroom. On this form, on this blueprint, is it appropriately meeting the ADA standards?
I found it hard to tell.
Yeah, it said it was 1/16 to every foot, and it was kind of hard to measure out.
Well, I'm guessing that that circle that's drawn in the middle is a turning circle for a wheelchair.
5 feet, yeah, yeah.
And the
All right.
ADA 2010 standards do permit a unisex bathroom.
Okay.
So I would suggest that we just put in the minutes for that to Eric about the actuator and that the capacity for it being a restaurant, that we're something like, well, I'm sure that Lindsay will think of the best way to write this, but something like we're confident that that the bathroom meets full ADA standards or something like that. Is that okay with everybody and with Lindsay?
Yes.
Well, I think we might say that we couldn't see enough detail, but we didn't see anything that stood out as fatal. And they could have a 12-inch high toilet, which might be a problem.
Yeah.
You know, or truly the sink over here could have pipes exposed that, you know, would burn your knees, those kinds of things. Hopefully whoever is their contractor on the rehab is going to know all those things.
But sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
So sometimes they really don't. So I think that the wording should be the actuator on the door, that we trust in the, you know, planning board's good judgment that the bathroom is fully accessible with accessible bars and toilet seats and door width, or, you know, something to that effect, as they well know. Something where you're kind of complimenting them, but pointing it out. Because sometimes it's, how many bars do they need, Lynn?
Well, it
Do they need?
depends on where they put the toilet, but usually they need one on the side wall and then one on the back, you know, behind the toilet. That's usually the minimum.
Okay, and can you specify the direction for them for Lindsay, which way they should be, so that like we could just say it like we know that they know this, but just specify those 2 bars and the height of the toilets.
Healthy reminders.
Healthy reminders.
Yeah, I can.
Or as I call them, soft kick in the asses.
Right. I'm looking at it and thinking it could be a restaurant on Wells Street. It can be, well, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's placed with a poor license or whatever. Everybody needs to be able to get in and out and move their way around easily. But, you know.
And my last question is the emergency exit. The emergency exit doesn't come out where the where that loading dock is it? Or it's just the big door where
Right
the
here.
delivery entry is? Okay. Okay.
I think I have a picture. Hang on. That is the delivery door there.
Right, right. Okay. So that's going to be the emergency exit.
And I think we should ask them the question, does this door open if there's no power?
Ah,
Because if it's an emergency exit and you have to pull some chains to make it come up, hopefully somebody knows how to do that. But if it's an emergency exit and it just has a big button you press to make the door open and there's no power, it's not an emergency exit.
Right, right.
Good question.
Okay.
And then the very last thing was Bob asked the question about the front sidewalk. Do you mind flipping back to that picture that you took? Just in terms of the entrance, who is responsible for the sidewalk in front and then the sidewalk leading into the building? Do you know that, Lindsay? Is that a DPW thing or is that the owner?
My understanding is generally the sidewalk in front of your home, parallel to the road, is the city's. And that the sidewalk running perpendicular to your home is yours. I assume it's the same for this commercial property.
So we need to bring that up because that's not an totally accessible route.
So if they're
Yeah.
planning to use it as part of the accessible route, it doesn't meet standards, but if they changed up to create their own.
Yeah, I would say the only thing I found that looked like it was a real no-go is that there's a gap in the sidewalk right here that's more than a half an inch. There's a big crack in the pad that leads to the entrance door that they suggest, but it's not that wide. It's just a crack in the sidewalk. This pad is about 6 feet by 6 feet, so there's plenty of room to clear the door. As Jenny says, if you've got a button to push to make it open the door, if you're in a chair and you're trying to open the door to get into this place, unless it's 5 pounds of pressure, is that what we plan for?
Yeah.
That's a little tough to do with what I'm pretty sure is going to be a security door for this building when it's not open. Don't know. But the whole sidewalk starting into the parking lot here is just absolutely beat to hell. So it looks like this. This is looking back toward the door that they're recommending. And I'm sure they've had heavy trucks coming back and forth through here. The parking lot itself is absolutely a horror, big holes here.
Yeah.
Which is about where the handicap parking would be. So they must be going to re-pour their parking lot. Let me see if I have. Yeah, this is the side of the building where parking is. This is the loading dock in the back. So that's an elevated loading dock. And part of our problem in trying to tell them that they need to make the handicap parking for a van and a little wider, actually about 2 feet wider, is that's probably going to take them right down to that delivery door that's in the middle of the building. So I don't know if they are going to be happy with that, because then there'll be a car right next to the delivery door where they're trying to back in big trucks. That's maybe why they drew it the way they did, that they were trying to leave some space there.
And
If it were my building, I would advocate for trying to get enough of a nod from the CDA to say, maybe the handicap slot moves down. So it's where this second parking space is. So the now wider parking, or no, I'm sorry, it's the same size parking aisle is next to the delivery thing here. So when you're trying to back in a truck, you're not going to have a car right here. You're going to have the access aisle for the van.
Right, that's a good point. Yeah. All right.
And you're assuming that they're going to repave the parking lot.
I think they will have to. I really do think they will have to. I mean, that's the parking lot. This is what Lynn was talking about to, if the handicap parking spot is here and there's another one here, you go on the other side of this door and there's another couple parking spaces, there should be a sidewalk that runs along the building so you don't have to walk behind the cars, that comes down and connects to the sidewalk. And I think if we looked at the standards, they'd say for emergency egress, if you come out this door, you have to be able to reach the street.
Yeah.
So even if the parking lot is redone to have to go behind these cars and the fire engines and the emergency medical technicians and all the rest to get to the street, much easier to just come down here. And it's good for the other 3 parking spots too, that, you know, they don't have to walk behind cars to get there.
Bob, if you
Right.
bring up those plans again, it looks like it's a distance from the front of the parking spaces look like they are maybe 3 or 4 feet from the building line.
Okay, but I think we should probably say that.
Yeah, no, I definitely think we need to say it, but
Yeah. Look,
Yeah, I think that maybe this is some sort of foundation. I'm not sure that's supposed to be a sidewalk. Maybe though, but I would pretty much guarantee you that's not a 4-foot wide sidewalk, which I believe we need to meet the ADA standards for a wheelchair. Is that right, Lynn?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, at least 4 feet.
I was speaking about between the building and the front of the parking space. It does look like they have some space there. I'm not sure that they're choosing to make, I don't know what they're doing with it.
Me neither.
So I think we
I
just articulate that clearly.
yes.
It could be that they're paving all the way up against the building. And maybe that works. I don't know.
Historically, I would say that some things go in on Well Street without people doing this paving and sidewalk, et cetera, things. So I think we should just kind of say that.
Okay.
Ginny, do you mean to specify that a new surface for the pavement would be required?
Well, whatever, I don't know exactly how you would phrase it. They don't have to pave the entire parking lot because of us, but that, you know, we're assuming that would happen, although we don't know that, but that has to be, I'm pointing and you can't see me, that the sidewalks have to be, you know, 4 feet wide, that the route has to be accessible, which it's not at the very beginning of the parking lot. And then the that area in the front of the spaces you're assuming is 4 feet. I'm sure that Lindsay, you'll be able to craft that language beautifully, but I think you have to specify it because I've seen it not done at the hairdresser's place on the other side. That's the other side of that building. I've seen it not done on most of the things that are down that end of Well Street. So,
Yep.
And you know what? There may be extra money. There's something that was being turned in this month, even that's coming up on council. It's coming from something else that, well, personally, I'm not that happy where it's going, but there would be, I see it as extra capital money that was left over from something else. If we need to put it in a sidewalk here, that would be better than the in my mind, than the street that we were looking at paving, because I think that all stuff should be going to sidewalks if it's extra.
Mhm.
It's my political statement.
Okay. Well, I think, being as specific as possible is always the best way to go. Doesn't always necessarily mean that it'll happen, but being specific, it takes away a lot of the assumptions. Okay. Anything else?
Lynn, I did have one question about the seating, if I may. I'm trying to imagine exactly where you go to sit if you're in a wheelchair. You come in this entrance, and I don't know if you speak to the barkeep or if a server comes to you, but where do you park? Over here in the corner?
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be my thought.
It took me a long time to understand that this thing along the right side here is a bench seat.
Right. That's what I figured. Yeah.
Because if you park a wheelchair here, then whoever wants to get back here needs to come through this location, and to get out has to come out this way. And if you put your wheelchair here, then 4 people have to go different ways. So I don't know. I guess it depends on how many wheelchairs you have. We may not be able to meet in this tap room.
Right. Yeah. Well, hopefully we can move the chairs and push the tables together, and we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
But yeah. Okay. So just quickly about on the next item is the COVID-19, and there was a concern about the mask mandate for immunocompromised people. And Bob did refer that concern to Jennifer Hoffman, the health director, and seemed to be very understanding. I'm not sure what the new regulation is, but there are still people who, even they're vaccinated, take immunocompromised medication. So, I'm still wearing a mask in public for those people. Yeah. So I haven't heard what the official statement is by the city yet. Do you happen to know of that, Lindsay?
The official statement on what? Sorry.
On the mask mandate.
It came out recently. Hang on, let's see if I can get it for you.
It's going to mirror the state, though.
I think, yeah, Greenfield has lifted its mask advisory, and I believe it mirrors the state now. Yeah, there's a press release on the main website of the city that as of Saturday, May 29th, wearing mask is no longer required in public. And it follows the announcement of Governor Baker.
Okay.
I think the original issue that I heard from the citizen was that the early on statements about masks being no longer required said, unless you fall into one of these categories, if you are immunocompromised, if you, I don't know what the other things were, but the citizen was immunocompromised due to some treatments, and said, they've stopped saying that. They've just said, hey, you don't need to wear masks anymore if you're vaccinated. And they were hoping that the governor would try to put the language back into the pronouncements to say, unless you're in these categories. And Jennifer Hoffman was going to pass that on to the governor's folks to say, remember the howevers when you talk about don't have to wear a mask anymore, because there are people who may be immunocompromised, but may not be really dialed into what that means in terms of wearing a mask. So they say, oh, good, I don't have to wear a mask anymore, when they really should still be wearing a mask. So I think the citizen was trying to get us to smarten up the governor, and Jennifer Hoffman was going to do that. I haven't heard anything more from the governor. We haven't talked in a long time. Ever.
Okay. So the next thing on the agenda is is an email address for the CDA. And Lindsay and I had a nice discussion about that before the meeting today. So if you wouldn't mind, Lindsay, just giving the quick summary that you gave me, the pros and cons.
So in my prior hat, those of you who knew me previously in the mayor's office will know that I have had this conversation many, many times previously. So this is my first time coming at it from this direction. So there are a couple, the city, so every @greenfield-ma.gov email address, right, which comes with, from Google, comes with the email and the storage and Google Docs and Google Drive and the whole package. That's how the city gets it. So we get to choose, we get licenses, and each one of those is about $800 a year. And so, needless to say, they don't like just creating all sorts of these. But so this is kind of an address, right? We'll call it an address. But there are a couple of different ways around this. So one is you could set up a forwarding address, right? So I said to Lynn, it's kind of like a PO box, right? So the PO box, you don't have the filing cabinet and all the stuff that is required for public records, right? You have just kind of a pass through, right? The PO box gets the documents and you pick them up. So we could do a forwarding address type thing where it's called a distribution list. So, right, it could be cda@greenfield-ma.gov, and it gets forwarded to a different box. So in this case, it could be forwarded to my box. It could be forwarded to the mayor's box, right? They're the head of all committees. And then they would pick up the mail, essentially, put it in their box, and then that way the public record is stored forever, because that's one of the big things, is maintaining public records. The concern about people just typing in a quick email address is someone may choose to say something that maybe has their personal health information in it. This wouldn't be redacted under HIPAA because we're not doctors, and because someone has voluntarily disclosed it. So they may not realize that they have now put in a public document private personal health information. So that's kind of one of those pieces. So then we could do sort of a contact form on the website, which would say, hey, contact the CDA, and would have a little bit more of a disclaimer to remind people that anything you submit to the city becomes a public record. And so, please remember that when you're submitting. But neither of those solutions, so that's kind of my two solutions for incoming mail, but neither of those solutions really deal with outgoing, which, say the CDA wants to send an email to someone. And so I talked to the mayor's office, and this is what we used to do too, which is the staff person for the committee or the mayor's office would be responsible for sending out correspondence on behalf of the committee. It was so much easier when it was just a typed up letter. You had the chair sign it, you put it in an envelope, you licked it, you put the stamp on, sent it out the door. It's a little bit harder in the electronic age to do that. So that's where we're at. But I wanted to kind of bring those to you all.
Yeah, and what I mentioned to Lindsay was, so for instance, when Bob did the 5 issues to be addressed to the library committee, we sent it to Lindsay with a cover letter from me. but when we're, or let's just say, we're gonna send a letter to the People's Bank because we want them to put in an actuator. It just feels like it needs to come from, the CDA website as opposed to a personal email.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the piece that we're going to keep working on, because obviously we don't have $800 in our annual budget that we could spend for our own our own email. Bob, did you want to make a comment?
It just seems like $800 for a Google account per email. Is that what you're saying, Lindsay?
Well, because if an email is considered a city employee, so right, so it includes all of the data storage. Like we have to work every single email I get sent. It could be spam, it could be a newsletter, has to be maintained for years and years and years under public record law. So all of that, and Fernando has to be able to retrieve it at any moment, right? So all of that is part of our special government emails. And it's all built into, and it gives us, access to all the other pieces. And so that's part of what drives up the cost of behind these email addresses, right? As a member of the public, my own personal email address, right? I don't pay for my Gmail address, but they get a lot of data out of me. They collect a lot of data on me. And if I delete an email, doesn't matter, it's gone.
But it's never gone from the city.
But the city, it's never gone, right? So so that's why they're expensive, is because it's not a filing, it's a filing cabinet, but it's kind of like what happens in the city, right? Then you have another filing cabinet, and pretty soon you have this big storage issue because you have 43 million filing cabinets worth of stuff. And now that everybody just CCs people on emails all the time, you can just imagine how big that gets. And so, yeah, it's just part of the complication. So the nice part about a forwarding email is it's seen as a list, right? And it just would come to another inbox, which is the employee that would hold all the information. Does that make a little bit of sense? Like, I was trying to use the concept of a PO box with Lynn, that the forwarding address would be the PO box, and then I'd go pick up the stuff from the PO box, and I'd have to figure out how to store it and maintain it in my house. And so once my house was full of stuff, I'd have to figure out, So
yeah,
I think
no, that's a good analogy. Yeah. And I also was thinking after we spoke, Lindsay, that, if we really need to, send something that looks very professional to, the kidney center, the dialysis center or something like that, I mean, we could use a regular letter, it doesn't, we're not always under the gun for a timeline the way that,
Old-fashioned way.
yeah, so, use good old snail mail, but of course that may just be me,
Well,
But then, of course, that is not archived in the city's record system, or is it? Who keeps the CDA's records, Lindsay? Okay.
they live in a filing cabinet in my office.
All right.
I think that was a valid point that you made about people writing in to CDA and revealing personal health information. As someone who frequently does not read thoroughly all disclaimers, I just have to say I don't. I'm a skimmer. I miss things. And I think that alone that little piece of information alone made me go like, because I wouldn't be apt to do that. I'd be apt to just, I'm writing to disability access. I'd be figuring they were keeping that safe, you know? So that little part scares me. So I'm for keeping that the way it is.
Bob, did you want to make a comment?
One of the reasons that I thought we should try to get together with the Human Rights Commission is that they've been talking quite recently. They're getting or have gotten their own email address, but they're also working on web forms for citizen complaints. And you have the same sort of issues that somebody who's going to say, I've been racially profiled, or I've been called a naughty name, or somebody, attacked me. That's pretty personal information to put in a form that then, what happens to the forms that come in? Are they archived in the system? I don't know.
They are archived.
All right, so they may have some insight into safeguards for that or whatever. I don't know.
So I did talk to the mayor's office, who manages all the boards and commissions. And so HRC currently has a forwarding email.
Oh, do
so
they?
It's not an email, it's a forwarding
Okay.
piece. So just as a clarification. And I believe that they do not currently have a web form because there was some concern about the language making it sound like the HRC had the ability to enforce or resolve things that might not have been under their purview. And so I think whatever we said on the, I think for the CDA, it would be a contact us page. I don't think it would be a submit your complaint here, because you guys can't enforce against things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, we'll wait to hear about the last piece, but I think we're probably good.
If you'd like me to move in either direction, the contact page or a forwarding email, those I could probably do in the next month. So just let me know.
Okay. All right. Okay. So just quickly in terms of announcements, Bob went to the Deliberate Downtown meeting. I did too, but I didn't make it through the whole thing. And they're going to be doing more work. So I think it's just important for us to make sure we be part of the planning. So just know that that's on the agenda, and we'll keep an eye on that. And then also Bob had sent me an email. I don't know if everyone else was interested, of a website called Tech Enabled.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Again, I'm sorry. I do ask him to forward things, but I couldn't remember whether I did or not on that one. Okay. So that's about it. Just on the agenda, it was listed as our next meeting is June 10th, but it's July 8th. And I didn't know if Lindsay, did you have something?
Can we get a quick vote on what we're going to send over to planning, just so I can say you all voted on it?
Sure. Are you going to write it up to send it to planning?
I can. I just want to make sure that I have permission from the committee.
Okay.
I move that Lindsay sends to planning board the recommendations that we discussed.
Second, Mayo.
Lynn
In
Kelly,
favor.
yes. Mhm.
I'm in favor. I vote in favor.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Bob Williford,
Aye.
yes.
Aye.
And Lauren.
Yes.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, guys. I just want to be able to say you voted on it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Always the official.
You know, you'd be surprised.
Hey,
Well,
I know,
we learned,
don't I
I
know it?
learned a lot today from you about that web address. And so I appreciate your guidance and expertise there. It was something I didn't know. So thank you. We're lucky to have
It's
you.
more complicated than one expects.
Mhm.
Yeah. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Oh, let's just have our own CD email. Yeah. Okay. Well, Bob,
We're out of time, but perhaps the next meeting we could talk about the planning department's use of some, I think, outdated curb ramp drawings on things that they're putting out for bid. They're using one of those axial curved ramps on some of their drawings for the Hope Street sidewalks. And I don't think that those are really in favor anymore. So I don't know, in looking at the Hope Street plans, I only see 2 handicap curb cuts, which are nothing like are on the drawings. So I don't know what's going on, but I do think that we might want to talk about that. And I have some images we can look at from the Hope Street.
okay.
I
So-
love your images, so I'm for that.
The DPW department, you said planning, I think, but are you talking DPW?
Well, whoever's putting together the request for proposals that say, here's the drawings and here's from whatever the street is to Russell Street to 212 Hope, we'll redo the sidewalks and including the handicap curb cuts. And then the very last page, I think, is some drawings. And it shows a Plan D curb cut, which doesn't look like anything we do anymore.
So that's Alan over DPW, and I can give him a heads up too.
All right.
Great.
So
Okay. Well, thank you all. I appreciate your input. I'm going to adjourn the meeting. And
I'll
It
second
is
that. I'll second the
28.
adjourning motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, over now. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah.